Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Congresswoman Emilia Sykes. Congresswoman, I appreciate you coming on and joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Brittany.
You've been a freshman member of the 118th Congress for a little over a month now. So before we get started, tell us how it's going.
It's been going very well, and thank you for asking. It's been really exciting to get to meet my colleagues, get to learn more about Congress, how it operates, and ultimately learning even more about my constituents and my community. Certainly, as a candidate, you learn a lot about what the needs of folks are in Ohio's 13th congressional district, which is in Northeast Ohio. I met people all over the district who shared things with me, but as we're getting more information and statistics and understanding our assets in all these communities, it has been really interesting and a lot of fun learning how I can best serve my community.
Give us some behind the scenes scoop here. What has been the most surprising thing to you in the past month?
Well, one of the things I've shared with people is that inside House chambers, when you watch it on C-SPAN, it looks like this massive, massive place, but it's very cozy. It's much smaller once you're inside. It's close, and I imagine it so we can be collegial. We can, walk across the aisle, talk to our colleagues, sit next to each other in a comfortable way. But it's a much smaller space than it seems on TV. But it does allow for us to get to know our colleagues a little bit better.
That's nice that it's a little cozy atmosphere there. Hopefully, when it's nice, maybe a little testy at times when the two sides are fighting. But I do want to take a step back and talk about how you got into politics. Both your mother and father held your previous seat in the Ohio House of Representatives before you. So, is this family history what drew you into politics?
It's actually, Brittany, why I didn't want to go into politics. And for a long time, I did everything that I could to find a different destiny for myself. But I've, said before, if you want to make God laugh, you create your own plans. And so, although I really wanted to serve my community and be a public servant in some way, I figured I could find different alternatives rather than to be in elected office. But when the position of state representative made itself available, I felt very responsible to my community, to the place that raised me, and wanted to serve them as a state representative. And I'm really grateful that they gave me the opportunity to do so and have continued to allow me to serve them now as a member of Congress.
And then what made you want to run in the national level?
So again, I wasn't really looking for a seat to run into or run for. But like a lot of people, after January 6th, became very concerned about the state of our democracy and just could not leave it to chance. Our government is really important. Our democracy is important to protect. And as you mentioned before, sometimes things get testy amongst members and we argue about issues. But the reason we are allowed to do that is because our democracy exists and gives us a platform and the ability to debate ideas so that we can pull out the best ideas and serve our communities. So I was moved a lot by what happened on January 6th. I looked at, ultimately the map and what it looked like, and we didn't know because we had a little bit of drama here in Ohio with the redistricting process. And there was a new seat. There was a retiring member, and I felt like I could continue to serve and went and pled my case to the people of Ohio 13, and they agreed that I would be the best person to serve them. So I'm really grateful for them giving me this honor and opportunity.
I do want to talk now about the 118th Congress. And as you know, Democrats have control of the Senate, Republicans have control of the House. So, what do you think a divided government can achieve?
Well, it depends on what the government wants to achieve. I came from a legislature where Democrats were in the super minority, and I was the Democratic leader. And people often say to me, well, why would you want to come into Congress? You're going to be in the minority. To me, this is an upgrade from super minority to minority. And we were incredibly successful. And I learned how to work with people who had different ideas, who didn't always agree, and sometimes just didn't even want to talk. But listening much more than speaking, finding that issue or that topic where you do agree and building from there rather than the opposite is how I've been successful in the past. I'm going to bring those same skill sets with me to Congress to work on behalf of the people of Ohio 13.
I do want to talk about that. You have a history of bipartisanship. During your time in the Ohio House, you supported bipartisan bills that covered a host of issues, from domestic violence to road improvement and everything in between. So, what are some policy areas you can see working with Republicans on in the next 2 years?
So right now I am a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and there is literally no person in the United States who does not have to deal with our transportation and infrastructure. It's one of the largest committees in Congress, and we are all very committed to ensuring our roads and bridges are safe, our water is safe and easy and available to drink. These are just basic human needs. And I am confident I can continue to find ways to work with my colleagues to ensure that we are getting people to and from, that we're supporting our supply chains with rail and aviation, as well as our roads and freight. And it is a matter of our public safety to ensure all of these things are in working order. So I've been in communication with my colleagues. I know that there are places where we can get together and work. It's the reason why I accepted the position of vice chair of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus, so that we can talk about the issues that impact women and uplift those in a bipartisan way. But ultimately, this is about conversing with folks who have very similar needs and identifying allies in those places and building up from there.
Is there any specific legislation regarding both infrastructure and women that we can look forward to?
Well, I think we could look to the State of the Union, where we saw the president talking about Medicare and Social Security. There are a lot of people across this country who rely on those two services, and even at the president's nudging, we were able to get at least a standing commitment, if you will, that people from both sides of the aisle are going to support Medicare and Social Security, even with the conversations around the debt ceiling. So I think that's a great place to start. Ensuring some of those programs in which people have paid into continue to exist into the future, and ensuring folks aren't in poverty and they're getting the support that they need.
And is legislation and women issues your top issue in your agenda, or do you have any other priorities as well?
My priorities are the priorities of Ohio's 13th congressional district. And what I heard from them and what I continue to hear from them is they are looking to find ways in order to lower cost, saving money on gas, groceries, rent, and anything else that impacts their daily lives. We've seen a lot of legislation from the Inflation Reduction Act, or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that is going to be implemented in this year. And I'm looking forward to continue to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to take advantage of all of that fantastic legislation and implement it in a way that impacts all of us equitably, in ensuring that we're living the best lives that we can in our communities.
I do want to take a step further here. According to a recent Gallup poll, the issue that is facing Americans, their main issue right now, is the government itself. They're saying that it's currently not working. So, how specifically do you think you can address this issue?
Well, I can be a model of what good government looks like. Again, I shared with you that I am a vice chair of the Bipartisan Women's Caucus, and it is a role that I take seriously because it gives me an opportunity to meet with women on both sides of the aisle, hear what their perspectives are, and find ways to move forward. We have a responsibility as elected officials to tell the truth, to work with our colleagues in the media to get information out that is useful and beneficial, but also honest. And that's a really simple thing that we can do. But more than anything, it is just being a good public servant and being accessible and available to my constituents. The first thing and my first rule for my office, both in the district as well as in DC, is our constituents come first, and letting them know that we are reliable, that they can call us, that they will get their phone calls answered, that they will get their emails answered, and will navigate their constituent issues, is really one of the best ways that we can instill trust back into our government and institutions, by just showing up and meeting people where they are.
Are you more optimistic for the country and lawmakers as a whole in the next 2 years?
I am optimistic because we have to be optimistic. This is the country that we live in. It's the country that we love. And if we are not, we are doomed to fail. And so I am not setting us up for failure. This is the greatest country in the world. And I have to move forward in a pace and in a way that shows my pride in this country and the people who live here, because quite frankly, they are our greatest strength. And it is what gives me purpose and motivation every day.
I do want to talk about the makeup of the Congress. You're a millennial. According to NBC News, the average age of a member of this current Congress is 57 and a half years old. Do you think when it comes to politics, age is just a number? Or do you think that your youth is to your advantage?
I certainly think age is just a number, and we certainly rely upon members, no matter what their experience is and how they come to Congress, because they have something to add in terms of value. Folks who have been here for a while can show us the ropes and go through the rules and tell us the history of why things happen. New folks and new members can bring their experiences with student loan debt or climate crises or what it's like to be in lockdown in schools. We need these types of experiences, no matter where they come from, what demographics, what age, which gender, their sexual orientation, to help understand what the life is of an American, no matter who you are. And that's the greatest part about our democracy, because when you have this diversity of ideas, it is our strength and it allows us to serve people better. So I have enjoyed colleagues with our youngest member of Congress. I've enjoyed Congress with some of our longer serving members, and they all have something of value to add. And I'm so appreciative of their experience and the fact that they're here to serve the people of America.
You mentioned that members of Congress can look to the younger members for guidance surrounding student loans, things like that. What issues specifically are you looking to older members of Congress for guidance on?
Well, they have a historical perspective and allows us to understand why things are not or why things are. And when I say that, it can help us break down some of the frustration and why we couldn't get pieces of legislation. It may be a certain member who just really doesn't want to allow that piece of legislation to pass that is holding it up. It could be a rule, whether formal or informal, that's keeping it. And maybe it's a rule change that we need to do. And they can provide that perspective and that framework to give us some suggestions on how to be better. Sometimes it's just merely encouragement and just saying, yeah, you should go ahead and do this. And I've done this before, and you can do it this way. And these were some of the roadblocks that I've had. It has been really, really amazing to be mentored by folks that I've seen on TV, given passionate floor speeches or leading civil rights, and being able to learn from them has been incredible. But I know that they also appreciate the energy and the new ideas, and sometimes they're ready to pass the mantle off to someone else to take up the fight. And I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Can you share any specifics on who these mentors are?
Well, obviously, I have been watching our speaker, Nancy Pelosi, for some time, and she makes herself available to new members to talk to us. She reminds us that if you are in the arena, you have to be ready to take a punch, but also throw a punch for the children, of course, as she likes to say. But she is always encouraging us to know your why and know why you are here. And then just be yourself. That's when I asked her specifically, what advice do you have for a new member? She says, just be yourself, and it will take good care of you. It's been great to learn from Jim Clyburn, who is a civil rights leader, who was someone who was very encouraging. And he talks through the history of different civil rights issues that he's had and participated over the years. And as we're right now discussing and talking about police safety and police violence and community safety, he's shared the different conversations he's had with administrations and presidents and other leaders, and why we're continuously having issues. So Leader Hoyer, who has been a great asset as well, who can walk through some of the historical context. We have a wealth of knowledge, and it's been really great to sit and talk with them in that cozy house chamber that I was talking about earlier, just kind of sit right down next to them and have that conversation.
Yeah, that cozy environment will definitely, breed these types of conversations. And I do now want to get into a lightning round. So rapid fire Q&A, just a whole host of questions I have for you. So are you ready?
I am ready.
Great. Have you made any new friends or allies in office so far, and who are they?
So a couple. I've spent a lot of time with Val Hoyle from Oregon. She's a new member who's really great, but I've also gotten to know some Republicans from my delegation, like Mike Carey and Max Miller. They both came to my in-district swearing-in ceremony, which was very generous of them. Again, just trying to work within my delegation and in a bipartisan way.
Growing up, what political figure did you look to as the type of lawmaker you eventually aspired to be?
I look to my mother. She was someone who I got to see every single day behind the scenes, up close and personal. And she continuously encourages me and encouraged me to be a strong woman who does not back down from a fight and always stands up for people who who elected me to serve them.
What advice would you give a young Emilia Sykes?
Just do it.
Love it, Nike. Des- Describe today's Democratic Party in one word.
United.
Describe today's Republican Party in one word.
Disarray.
President Biden hasn't announced the 2024 bid yet officially, but do you want Joe Biden to run for re-election?
Joe Biden showed us incredible courage and strength in the State of the Union, and I would be happy to support him for the presidency.
Describe the future of the Democratic Party.
Diverse.
Describe the future of the Republican Party.
Chaotic.
Within the next 2 years, how will this Congress improve the country?
This Congress honestly has to look inward and decide what they want to do. And hopefully, as I mentioned about the Republicans and what we've seen from the Democrats, I hope they choose to govern. I hope they choose to serve. That's what we're doing on the Democratic side.
Is it looking like both parties are choosing to govern?
The Democrats are absolutely ready to serve and govern on behalf of the American people.
And finally, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to look at me and see that I was a public servant that cared truly about my community, but also to recognize that Black women are, in fact, in places of power and authority, and we belong here.
I love that message. Congresswoman Emilia Sykes, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Brittany. This was great.